Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the Arizona Cardinals 2026 draft class to figure out if they finally have the pieces to turn this struggling franchise around. If you follow the league at all, you know Arizona has been stuck in a serious rut, desperately searching for a new identity. So we're going to take a close look at the fresh talent they just brought in to see if the foundation for sustainable success is finally being laid out there in the desert.
Here's how we're going to break this all down today. First, a franchise-hitting reset, then finding the game breaker, looking at protection and potential, adding critical roster depth, and finally, the final verdict.
All right, Section 1, a franchise hits reset, the end of an era.
Before we even talk about the rookies, we got to talk about why this ground-up rebuild was absolutely necessary in the first place, right? 3 wins, 14 losses. That brutal record last season is the ultimate reason head coach Jonathan Gannon was let go. I mean, going 15-36 over 3 years, that kind of prolonged struggle leaves a front office with literally zero choice but to just clean house and start entirely from scratch.
So, looking for a totally fresh start and honestly some sustainable success for a change, the organization wiped the slate totally clean. They brought in former Los Angeles Rams offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur to be the new head coach. It's a massive paradigm shift. It signals this real, desperate desire to inject some much-needed offensive ingenuity into a team and, frankly, a long-suffering fan base that has basically lacked a spark for years now.
Moving right along to Section 2, finding the game breaker. Round 1, pick 3.
Now, when you're picking third overall, you aren't just hunting for a guy who can start. You need a foundational superstar, someone who can totally flip the team's momentum. And with that pick, the Cardinals grab Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love. At 6 foot even and 212 pounds, Love he's an absolutely elite talent. If you watch the tape, the guy simply does not get tackled when he gets into the open field. For a moribund franchise that has really struggled to move the chains, adding a dynamic weapon who can break off a massive play literally every single time he touches the ball, that is a gigantic upgrade.
And the sheer, game-breaking consistency of his production is just staggering. Just think about that 6.9 yards per carry for a second. He's actually rushed for over 1,000 yards 2 seasons in a row at that unbelievable pace. Couple that with 1,372 rushing yards and 18 rushing touchdowns last season alone, and well, it's pretty obvious why he's going to keep opposing NFL defenses totally on their heels all game long.
All right, on to Section 3, protection and potential. Rounds 2 and 3.
So, after landing their superstar back in the first round, the front office smartly shifted their focus to the trenches, which, let's be real, is the most pivotal position group in football. In the second round, they grabbed Texas A&M guard Chase Bizantis. Just think about the size of this prospect for a minute. 6'5" and 315 pounds. He was a starter for the Aggies the last 2 years, and his incredible physicality right at the line of scrimmage basically guarantees he'll be an immediate day-one starter at either left or right guard for Arizona this fall. You can't run the ball with your shiny new running back if you don't have absolute road graders up front, right? Well, Bizantis fits that bill perfectly.
Then we get you a really fascinating gamble in the third round. They picked up quarterback Carson Beck out of Miami. Now, Beck brings an incredible pedigree. I mean, he just led the Hurricanes to the college football playoff championship game, and he's got the kind of elite arm strength to make literally any throw you'd ever need in a modern NFL offense. But, and this is a big but, he carries some serious risk. Even though he threw for over 3,800 yards and 30 touchdowns last year, he also tossed 12 interceptions. And the scouting reports note that he tends to throw those picks at the absolute worst possible times. It is the textbook definition of a high-risk, high-reward scenario.
Next up, Section 4, adding critical roster depth in rounds 4 through 7.
Look, surviving the remarkably rugged NFC West takes serious depth, and the Cardinals found some immense upside in the 4th round with Southeastern Louisiana's Caleb Proctor. 9. That is the number of sacks this 291-pound defensive tackle racked up last year. And what makes that number so astounding is that he primarily plays on passing downs. Getting 9 sacks from the interior defensive line in just a situational role is completely outstanding, and he is fully expected to bring that immediate pass-rushing pressure right up the middle for Arizona. They closed out the draft by plugging a few other noticeable roster holes. In the 5th round, they snagged Reggie Virgil. He's a 6'3" developmental wide receiver who could end up being an amazing red zone target, though he mostly fell to the 5th because he really needs to add about 25 pounds to his frame. In the 6th, they grabbed a literal tackling machine in Iowa linebacker Carson Scherer.
The guy recorded 83 tackles and brings a really strong up-the-middle pass-rushing ability. And finally, in the 7th round, they secured some highly experienced depth on the offensive line with Jaden Williams, a 4-year starter at tackle for Ole Miss.
Which brings us to Section 5, the final verdict, grading the class.
So what does this all actually mean when we step back and look at the big picture for a franchise that's desperate for a win? Well, the overall review of this draft class fields a solid grade of a B-. For a team that hasn't sniffed the postseason in half a decade, they obviously needed help everywhere, and these 7 picks provide absolutely critical depth right across the board. That grade is heavily driven by Jeremiah Love's guaranteed immediate impact on the offense, combined with the super exciting, though admittedly risky, potential of Carson Beck maybe stepping in as the starting quarterback later this season.
While new head coach Mike LaFleur has for sure secured some vital building blocks for his offensive system and fortified the trenches, we gotta leave you with this final provocative thought. Is a B- graded draft class really enough firepower to propel this struggling franchise through the rugged NFC West and back into the playoffs for the first time in 5 long years? It's gonna be a wildly fascinating season in the desert, that's for sure. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on this explainer, and I will catch you on the next one.